What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Unhinged Talk. As usual, I'm your host, Patrick Hennessy, joined tonight by the man, Paris Xenofantos. How we doing tonight, Para?
Doing solid, man. How about you?
Listen, I can't complain. The Yankees are coming off a great victory against the Toronto Blue Jays. And you know who had a pretty solid game? Gary Sanchez, your twin. Your twin, Para. But before we get too into Gary Sanchez, the topic I want to talk about today is kind of why he should start catching for Gerrit Cole. I know, crazy idea, right? But before we get into that, everyone be sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications for more. Bunch of links in the description. Be sure to hit those as well. We're going live before and after every single Yankees game this season. But back to the topic of conversation today. Gary Sanchez and why he should be catching for Gerrit Cole. This is kind of like a taboo opinion, right? Because obviously, like, Gerrit Cole clearly works better with Kyle Higashioka opposed to Gary Sanchez. I believe in his career with the Yankees, Gerrit Cole I think he has less than 10 starts with Gary Sanchez behind the plate. His ERA is probably like just under 4, I believe. When with Kyle Higashioka, I believe it's around 1 point. It's definitely below 2. So, I mean, obviously the numbers are there that kind of show Kyle Higashioka works well with Gerrit Cole compared to Gary Sanchez. However, I think at the same time, you kind of look at Gary Sanchez right now and what he means to the Yankees lineup. There's no way that you can continue sitting him on days just because Gerrit Cole's pitching. It's not even like Gary Sanchez could be DHing. It's the fact that you have to take him out of the lineup completely because Giancarlo Stanton is your full-time DH. And if the Yankees genuinely don't trust Gary Sanchez to be catching their ace Gerrit Cole, then there's an issue deeper than what like we're talking about today. Is that fair enough to say that at some point, especially in the playoffs? Because if Gary Sanchez keeps up this hot streak that he's on now, there's no way you could go into like a game 1 of a playoff series without Gary Sanchez in that lineup. So you don't want that like second start of him and Cole to be in the playoffs. You would kind of want to get things rolling now, right?
I agree, but if you really look at Cole's last couple of his starts with Higashioka, he struggled. It wasn't his best stuff, but honestly, Gary's been on a tear. Nobody's really giving the recognition Gary's been working on his game for the last couple of months, but I wouldn't mind seeing Gary Sanchez catch for Gerrit Cole. Even if it doesn't work, you still try working because
But that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
if you want to get to a better spot with Gary Sanchez and Cole and work on their relationship together, you got to keep playing with them. You can't keep putting Higashioka one game and then let Gary Sanchez catch for the rest of the rotation. It's not fair.
That's exactly what it is, right? And especially kind of considering now how hot Gary is and how we know that Gary is such a mental player and how he's such a streaky player as well, right? So if Gary's on such a hot streak, you don't want to take him out of the lineup and kind of mess up his groove. And I feel like if the Yankees keep doing this, that's exactly what's going to happen. So, like you kind of mentioned, I don't think it could hurt to try. Let's say because let's not forget, Gary Sanchez did catch Gerrit Cole on opening day. And while it wasn't his best start of the season, like he didn't do too poorly if we're kind of looking at those metrics. So I think it couldn't hurt to try at this point. Maybe tonight against the Blue Jays wouldn't be the time to do it just because it's such a crucial game and you don't really want to experiment too much. But I think if you want to have Gary Sanchez catch Gerrit Cole start, maybe like every other start or maybe every third start, I think that might be the way to go, just so these two guys can get comfortable together. So like I mentioned previously, if a postseason scenario does come up where you need Gary Sanchez in that lineup, because in the postseason, you want as much offense as possible, you don't want that to be Gerrit Cole and Gary Sanchez's first like time working together since opening day. That would just be ludicrous. That's the same situation as I mentioned all the time on the live streams. You don't want Giancarlo Stanton's first time in the outfield in 3 years to be in game 1 of the World Series. So the Yankees have to kind of start preparing for these things in the regular season. And I think before the summer ends, I'd like to see Gary Sanchez catch Gerrit Cole at least 2 to 3 times.
Oh, I agree with you. Higgy's not a great offensive catcher. He's more better off with his defense. But if Gary can provide both of those aspects, then why not catch him? See, that's the problem with the Yankees. They rely so heavily on analytics. They don't care if Gary Sanchez goes on a 13-game hitting streak. They worry more about if Gerrit Cole is going to pitch better during that game.
They don't believe in hot. They don't believe in hot, Para. But I mean, at the same time, I might get some hate for this. I don't know. I think Kyle Higashioka's defense is just a little bit overrated. I don't think that he's like substantially a better catcher than Gary Sanchez. And I also think you mentioned this previously. I don't think Gary Sanchez gets enough credit for him kind of turning himself around as of late. Not only offensively, because we've seen the bat like grow at a tremendous pace. What we're seeing out of Gary Sanchez offensively over his last 50 at bats or so is like 2016, 2017 Gary type numbers. If I talk about them really quickly, his last 51 at bats, he has 4 home runs, 9 RBIs. He's batting 330 through the 393 on base, 647 slugging. These are solid. These are almost top 2 catcher in the game numbers from Gary Sanchez. And I think you pair that with his defense, which has improved as well. I think the only way you could kind of make the argument that Kyle Higashioka would be a better option to start over Gary is the relationship he has with Gerrit Cole. That's probably
Yeah.
the only thing that Higgy has going for him at this point, because I don't think his defense, like I said before, I don't think it's so much better than Gary to the point where you have to start him over him.
And I'll admit it. We both downgraded Gary last year because he was atrocious last year. And
He
the
was.
fact that he barely even started in the playoffs. So if you can give Gary the opportunity to catch Gerrit Cole, especially in round 1 of the playoffs, and see how he does, and if it works off, you start Gary Sanchez. You don't start your backup catcher.
No, exactly. But what I'm saying is, like, you can experiment with that way before the postseason, just to kind of make
No,
sure that
you.
things work. So, like, by the time the postseason comes, you can assure that that duo is comfortable pitching with
But
each other.
isn't that the sad part? We can say we would do that, but are the Yankees going to do that?
Probably not. No, probably not. And I think also at the same time, if Gary Sanchez does catch for Gerrit Cole, I think that's a tremendous boost in confidence. Like, that's probably not a good feeling for Gary Sanchez that the ace of your team doesn't feel comfortable pitching to you.
But the Yankees are not. The Yankees are used to ruining people's confidence. They ruined Debbie Garcia's confidence. They ruined
It's
Clint
true.
Frazier's confidence. So
That's true.
why
I
ruin
mean,
Gary Sanchez's confidence? He's been with you since 2016, and he was a beast. Yeah, he's
yeah.
been on a downgrade in the last couple of years. But if he can rebuild himself and show that he's the true catcher of this organization, I can see Gary Sanchez being with the Yankees for another couple of years, getting an
And
extension.
I'll tell you what, Parra, I agree with you. I agree that kind of if the Yankees, however, like I agree, but at the same time, I don't think the Yankees are going to extend Gary. I would love for them to do so. I just don't know if I see it happening. But at the same time, also the narrative that I want to just go away is people calling Gary Sanchez lazy. It's the most overblown narrative that's gotten so ridiculous as the years have gone by. To call a player lazy simply because he might not have the defensive capability that you might like, or because you look back on a play in Tampa from 3 years ago, that narrative needs to go away, because we've heard from so many people from within the organization, Gary Sanchez is one of the hardest workers in the clubhouse. And we've kind of seen like not many people can rebound from that 2020 season that Gary Sanchez had. Let's not forget, he was one of the worst hitters in baseball in 2020. I think he finished the season with like a 147 average. People were talking about DFAing him. So I don't think that the guy's lazy. Look at how he's turned his career around. I know, like this season as a whole, his numbers don't look fantastic, but if you look deeper into the numbers, outside of batting average, Gary Sanchez is having a very good year, and it's very possible that he ends the season batting over 230 with like 25 home runs, and I think that should be something that everyone's satisfied with, and the Yankees fans need to put some respect on this man's name.
Preach to the choir, Pat.
But with that being said, I think that is going to wrap things up for today's episode. I think the bottom line here is Gary Sanchez is just performing so well as of late. I think that he kind of just needs a little bit more respect. And what way to give him a little bit more respect than to start letting him catch for Gerrit Cole and kind of, I don't want to say just eliminate the whole personal catcher thing, but just experiment a little bit. So in the time where a playoff scenario comes, Gary Sanchez and Gerrit Cole can work together and can be comfortable with that. But with that being said, everyone be sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications for more. We're going live before and after every single Yankees game this season. You guys know that already, though. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay safe. Let's go, Yankees. See you guys next time. Peace.